I have these two schizophrenic churches, he said. They're fighting inside of each other and with each other. They're driving me crazy. And I listened for about an hour of all this history of this stuff, and all of a sudden I thought I caught on, though I was tired, and my lag time is sloppy or virtually unuseful when I get really tired, okay? And all of a sudden I caught on, but I wasn't sure when to check it out. So I said, I'd like to check something out with you. It's usually how I get into story checking. He said, I knew you would, or hoped I would. I said, any chance you might be frightened you might become schizophrenic? And he put his head down on the table, like this, put it back up, and he said, last Friday my father was diagnosed as a schizophrenic in a mental hospital, and I'm scared I'm going to become one too. I know these two schizophrenic churches who story. Talking about himself. Our problem is we don't want to check it out because of what we may get. We're not quite sure what we'll get. Now, when you first start doing story listening, you really don't know what you're going to get because you haven't done that before. Just listen to your children, for heaven's sakes. They tell you stories all the time. Listen to your teenagers. They tell them to you all the time. Take your 4 or 5-year-old and simply say, tell me a story. And the little kid will tell you a story. And in it will be all the metaphors about what's going on, what he's struggling with or what she is. D, an anniversary story. An anniversary story is a form of a rehearsal story told at a given time of the year. Your mind is an incredible time clock. It remembers almost to the moment of an incident as the clock turns for 365 days. Incredibly accurate. Let's say that, well, the most blatant form in which I can say to listen to an anniversary story is to visit a widow 1 year and 1 day after the death of her mate. And you might hear a story that would sound something like this. You sit down and the person says, you know, I don't know what's going on with these teenagers, but the teenager next door took their new 6-born kittens and put them in a burlap bag and took them down here to the river and drowned them. Isn't that the worst thing you ever heard? What's the theme of that story?
Deterioration of teenagers.
Could be. Death.
Drowning.
Drowning. In burlap bag. There's your metaphor. Beg pardon?
That represents the coffin. Death.
Could well be. Good imagery. The meta-story check would be, I'm wondering, since you lost your husband a year ago, it didn't feel as if someone put you in a burlap bag and drowned you in a river. Big piece of you die in the last year? You betcha. Cannot not tell the story. I was out in California visiting the high Sierras and went to the giant sequoia forest. Any ever been there to the giant sequoia forest outside of Fresno? Gorgeous, gorgeous place. One of the most beautiful places on earth. With the Grant tree and the Sherman tree, both over 2,500 years old. Just go as I did one Sunday morning, had some free time, drove up and sat along one of those trees with no one else in the area. Just me and that tree. It was marvelous. Maybe you can hear some of my own metaphors, okay? See, I cannot not tell my story either. I walked that day with a tape recorder dictating ideas and what have you, and just sort of spending meditation time. Went up to the up to Morro Rock. Did you get up to Morro Rock by any chance?
Afraid.
You're afraid?
Yeah.
It is a tricky little path. I don't think you could fall off. Well, there are places where there are little railings alongside, and you can look off both sides down 5,000 feet, okay, on both sides of you. You could fall off of that, yeah. All you do is crawl under the railing, okay, or fall over it. Anyway, I made it to the top. There's about 770 steps to get up to this outcropping of rock that isn't much bigger than this room, with a little wrought iron fence around 3 sides of it, and you can walk over to the edge and look straight down 5,000 feet from all 3 sides. It's just right out the edge of this cropping of the mountain, and there's this little rock that hangs out, and they've made a path and trail that goes up to it. I wanted to be there all alone, just to experience what that would be like, but people were coming all day, and so I waited about a half an hour left, went down and stopped to see a friend who was a pastor near the park. I knocked on his door, and he was in his office. We greeted with a hug, and I knew that his son had been killed 11 months earlier, a 16-year-old son, in a car accident. But I had not seen him since that happened, and I had not corresponded with him either. So I said, I have not seen you for almost a year. I know your son has been killed. I wonder, you know, what's been like. It's got to be a terrible year, right? He said, yeah, I've never cried so much in my life. How are you? Okay. Where you been? He says. I said, oh, I just came down from Morro Rock. It's gorgeous up there today. Crystal clear. Can see the whole High Sierra Range. He said, you'll be on Morro Rock sometime when you watch the sun go down. Oh. And I said, how are you really? He said, well, there's a piece I haven't completed yet. What's that? My son was cremated, and his ashes are still in the urn in the closet in the house. I can't get rid of them. How come? He wanted me to take them up to Morro Rock and throw them off. I said to him, you ought to be on Morro Rock sometime and watch the sun go down. Boy, it just went bang, it's like that. S-U-N equals S-O-N. There's the metaphor. Anniversary story, almost to the year. Now I can deal with it. I spent about 3 hours with him, listening, helping work it through. I mean, who comes to listen to you when you're a pastor out in the Rocky Mountains with nobody near you for 50 or 100 miles? A final one, and it's called a transition story. Transition story has one or all 3 components to it. It has an ending, a confusion, and a beginning. I've heard transition stories from you people here already. I'm in the process of, I don't know what I should do, language. I don't know, I think I'll be leaving my parish and moving on. I don't know what to do, though. I don't know if I should stay in the ministry or leave, which is a common phrase I hear among many pastors who come to the labs. The more you try to abort an ending and not finish it, the longer you stay in the stage of confusion. The cleaner you can make your endings, the shorter the period of confusion, and the more you can start a new beginning. We're going to work on that story form extensively later in the week. We're going to take an hour or more just working on that one type of story form in reference to religious experiential transition in life. When these stories are being told, they may start here, but they may start at other levels, including the next level down, which is feelings back then. The difference is that the data back then story is filled with facts and information. It has almost no emotion in it. The feeling back then story can be any one of these, but it has feeling tones. It's the person who I mentioned said to you, You know, I really miss Pastor Bill. We were really close. That has feeling tones in it. She's not naming the feeling, but there are feeling tones in the voice. Third level is a very significant one, feelings now. What happens is the feelings begin to move towards consciousness. This stage is very significant, and you will see it. You almost never miss this stage as a listener. And that's because it is so blatant sitting in front of you. Person's beginning to tear, face is flushed, the hands get agitated, or you may see it as I did in a person the other day who was sitting talking with me, in which the face remained quite placid, but I saw this begin to happen to the ends of his fingers. His hands just began to shake like this. The rest of him was perfectly still. But he did not have palsy or some such thing. It started while I was watching. Get this rhythm going, or this very fast finger movement. That's where it shows up, okay? And then you move into the final stages where pain or its polarity, joy, comes to consciousness, and it is called self-disclosure, or the moment of aha. The moment of aha is when all of a sudden the story in you breaks to meaning. Now, it is quite possible for you to do self-story listening. Start listening to yourself. Talk to yourself. Or as I was handed a book here, and though I haven't read it, self-talk. Go inside and talk to yourself. Say, what on earth is this telling me? Why do we keep telling these stories? What's happening to me? What's going on? And you can begin to work on your own stuff. You can do it in meditation, you can do it in journaling, or whatever seems to be appropriate for you. The problem, my friends, is not the storyteller. It is the story listener. And a phenomena that I call counter-story. Counter-story is what goes off in you when I tell a story. While I was telling a number of my stories, I could see your counter-story fire off inside you by watching your face and seeing it come up. If I would have stopped you at that moment and said, tell me the story that just came to consciousness, you could have told me a story, and I'll predict something, that the story you would have told me would have had the same thematic material as the one I was telling. Now, if that happens, and it does, you know, if you will listen to your own insides, your own thoughts and your own feelings, what's going on inside me. You have just produced a mirror story. That's why these dashed lines are like a mirror, like a reflection in the pool, like in the Washington Monument, as you stand out in that pool that reflects it so beautifully. And you reflect it back. That's what counter-story means. Now, what happens is, as I tell my story up here, your counter data back then story gets triggered. And if you wanted to, you could say, gee, if you had it tough when you were a kid, you ought to hear about what happened to me. And you could have told your own counter story. And that's called social conversation. It's not negative. Unless you want to do depth listening, then it's negative, because all you'll do is stay and chit-chat, we call it. I tell a story, you tell a story. I tell a story, you tell a story. And that's okay. It's a good way to build rapport, as a matter of fact, is to do chit-chat with each other. Now, what happens is, as I go deeper and deeper, vacillating from story to story in my life, and I end up in a pain story, that same thing is going to happen to you. Except you're entering your own pain or its polarity, joy. You can only listen to me, folks, or you can only listen to another human being as deeply as you can enter your own pain. At that point, you will bottom out. You will change the subject on me. You will act out. You will do anything, but you won't listen to me. Why? Because you refuse to listen to yourself. The deeper you can enter your own personal pain, the deeper you are capable of staying in touch with the pain of another. You will see that happen a dozen or more times this week as we begin to listen to each other more and more to the pain that's in each one here. Because the moment you go to listen to it, a counter story of your own stuff is going to be fired to consciousness. Or it won't be fired to consciousness. That'll make it even worse. And you'll just up and change the subject on the person. And you won't know you did it because your unconscious took care of you. Rather than bringing it to consciousness and having you feel all that stuff, it just kicks out. The callers that make the most effective callers are the people who are mostly in touch with their own pain.
So as the listener is into counter story, this is during the lag time.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a listener, we process our pain, but we can still do it in such a way that we're not losing the teller.
That's right. You listen to what's going on in you, but you don't tell what's going on in you. You don't tell your counter story. You stay in a listening mode, but you use that information. Please don't misunderstand me. I am not saying for you to suppress your counter story. Quite to the contrary, I'm asking you to let your counter story come to consciousness.
How does all this fit into something like Al-Anon?
I think it works very well, because if you have been through the alcoholic route and you know what that's all about and can enter your pain, then you're likely to be able to stick with the pain of someone else who's been through it. However, if you stuffed yours, then you're not going to be of much help to somebody else, because their story is just going to fire off all your junk. Now, folks, I want to be realistic. Everybody has a bottom. Well, everybody but God, and the Bible says underneath are the everlasting arms. God's pain is deeper than all planet Earth put together. And so God can hear your pain deeper than anyone else. I think we call that the cross. We have a problem, church folks, around this. And the problem is this. We have taught our people how to stuff their pain. We have not told them how to enter it. And a result of that is we keep stockpiling our personal pain and also the pain of other people in the system. But we have another model. I want to end this lecture with this. Jesus showed us the model. This is virtually his life. He took 3 disciples and walked into the Garden of Gethsemane. His entering into his pain. There are 4 stories. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all have different stories of that phenomenon. I just preached on that a week ago, and so I'm aware, having done some biblical study in those 4 images. One of the models says that Jesus took all the disciples. The other model says Jesus took the disciples part way, then took Peter, James, and John the rest of the way to pray and watch with him. Well, we got a problem. Peter, James, and John do precisely the human behavior when it comes to sticking with somebody else's pain. What is it? Fell asleep. It's called avoidance. That's the human model. Jesus said, I give you another alternative. Watch me. And the Gospel of Matthew has Jesus falling prone on his face. Do you know how much pain you have to be in to fall on your face on the ground? Have you ever been in that much pain that you could not stand up and that you virtually laid prone out? Have you ever seen a Roman Catholic priest ordained? Do you know the position he is in front of the altar? Prone out on his face. Jesus comes back 3 times to ask the disciples, can you not watch with me 1 hour? I'd like to paraphrase. Can you not stick with my pain 1 hour? Not even 1 hour. The answer? No. Classic. They do represent us. They are our metaphors. Okay? One of the models out of the Christian faith is this, that on the other side of your personal pain is resurrection, is new life, is new energy, is new creativity, is new hope. On this side, there is despair and lostness and helplessness and hopelessness and feeling stuck and not adequate and all that. The issue is, can you go through it to get to the other side? That's the scary piece. To be able to walk into your pain is one of the issues. To be able to wrestle with it, as Jacob wrestled with an angel, I love that story because there's almost no dialogue. It is all kinesthetic. It is all touchy. It is a wrestling. And when Jacob comes away, he has 2 things. What are they? A new name and a wounded hip. Right. Come away with 2 things when you enter your pain: a new life and a wound. When Jesus came out of the tomb, he had a new life and a wound. Same as Jacob. Didn't he? Had the scars. Makes a neat sermon, by the way, pastors. If you didn't have one for Sunday, you may just have gotten a new theme, okay? Yeah.
That's in 3 parts, too.
Yeah. Need a 3rd part? Oh, you got the 3 parts. Say the 3 parts.
You've got the Gethsemane, you've got the conception of the milk, and then you've got the Jacob, Jesus, resurrection.
Right. Want a 4th piece?
No.
Oh, okay, okay. No, don't want to kill the whole sequence. Leave it alone, okay?
What's the
Do it in another way. I did a sermon a while back called Visiting 2 Gardens. Adam and Eve, who do what with their pain? Stuff it, avoid it, cover it up, blame, accept no responsibility. It's a very different model than the Garden of Gethsemane, another garden story. So tell both garden stories and link them together. You'll find it very fascinating.
attack in Joseph's love life?
Sure. Questions. When you hear this, what happens to you? Identify with what?
With the pain, with the story, I related to myself.
Okay.
Take it one.
Mm-hmm. Come on.
It raises anxieties for me. It says, will I know what to do with the pain when I get to it?
Whose?
Both of them.
Oh, yeah. There's only one person's pain you ever can deal with. Yours. I cannot deal with yours. That is you. That is in you. Your pain is never in me. My pain is in me, not yours. We live 100% of our life inside our skin. I can never know your pain. I can only know what the pain it triggers in me. Okay? That's called empathy. When I vibe with mine with yours.
The thing about having to hear a story more than once, you just hit me with two things. I happen to know the lady who told you the being stuck in the middle of it.
Right.
We meet at our prayer group every week.
Uh-huh.
And that made me think about listening to that again. But on a tape, I heard you tell the sun go down story. And I
Mhm.
remember reacting to it very, very strongly and immediately shutting off. Hearing it again, I was able to realize that, that my son is learning disabled, my only son. When you're an academic type, there's some things about that that are difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I realized I have probably never completely accepted that, and I'm not sure I will. But it took more than one telling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Father,
Yes.
why do you keep telling the Christmas story over and over and over and over?
Because we have a 3-year lectionary.
Why do we keep telling the gospel story over and over and over? Maybe one day you'll hear it, finally. Maybe one day, you won't take it literally, you'll hear it. So I have a very strong bias. Please accept it as a bias. If you take the Bible face literally, you'll miss its truth, because its truth is hidden in its stories. It's called the secrets of the kingdom. And they are hidden in the stories. And few there are that find it. If you take the Bible just at the surface, I'm not saying that surface is not true. I'm just saying that it's no different than taking a person at the surface level and missing the incredible amount of information and data of what is being sent to you through that story. A story is a vehicle. It is a verbal vehicle that carries deep truth about the individual or the community. Every culture since the beginning of time has told stories. I don't care how primitive or how scientific, every culture tells stories. The movie a while back on Star Wars, how did it start? You remember the panning? How did it start? What did it say? It was one of these. It was a rehearsal story start.
Many years ago,
Yeah. In a galaxy far, far, far away, long, long ago. That's how it started. It was a Data Back Then story.
Jesus in parables.
Jesus in the parables, sure. I only tell you stories in parables. There's a place where Jesus is quoted as saying that. One final piece. Jesus says to the disciples a parable. The parables take him literally. I mean, the disciples take the parable literally. Jesus said there was a man who went out and sowed seed. And some fell on good soil, and some fell among the thorns, and some in the path, and some on, along the path. Now, was he talking about seeds and ground? Jesus wasn't talking about seeds and ground. They're all metaphoric. Seeds equal the gospel. The different kinds of soil equal human beings. See, got the same model, don't you? Equals. I'm going to work on story listening in a couple of different ways. Okay?
If you want to have more information about being trained in calling and caring ministries, please contact Lead Consultants Incorporated, Post Office Box 664, Reynoldsburg, Ohio 43068, or call our office at area code 614-864-0156.